Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we are in the shop today, and today's not going to be a Corvette update. Today's actually going to be a welding table update behind us, and we've got a couple things that we'll be doing to this today. First thing, we're going to be welding on our welding table, so we'll be expanding it a little bit, and we've got some angle brake here that we might have to cut up to make sure that happens. And then the second piece is part of the titanium kit. You get a series of clamps. Well, I actually have a upgrade for those so that we could properly use them with this table. Now the fact that we're going to be expanding it a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead, get everything open up, and we'll show you what we have. All right, so what we have here is a 4-piece kit. Actually, there's like 5, 6, 7. I'm not really 100% sure what these outer pieces are for. But these 4 main pieces are basically going to be to wrap around each side of our welding table. And that will basically allow us to add any kind of like 2-post addition to the side of our welding cart, whether it's a vise anchor, whether it's a mount for a drill press, you know, anything like that. Anything that's under the 2 rows, you know, that's so you could bolt like 4 or 6 bolts to it. That will allow us to expand our table to whatever future mods that we want to do. But I saw this by Bash Fabrication. They are out of Columbia, South Carolina. And I reached out to them. I said, hey, I was like, would you guys only sell the outer plates? And the guy was like, yeah, he cut me a little bit of a deal on it because he didn't have to sell me all the structure and everything. Because basically Bash Fabrication, what they do is they take this top plate and then they basically make it a full fabrication table. They sell kits. I want to say the kit is like maybe $250, $300, something like that. He sold me all of the outer plates for something like 200 something. Maybe it was 220. I don't remember the exact figure, but he gave me a little bit of a break because finally we both had some time free up, and I was like, hey, what about those end plates? And he's like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So not a bigger deal, but we did eventually get this plate. And if you reach out to Bash Fabrication, they will sell you just the outer pieces that we need. And so yeah, that is gonna be the first upgrade for today, but I need to get some parts made for this because like I said, we only ordered the outer pieces. And what we need to do is basically find a way to attach these outer pieces to this inner piece down here. So one thing I did want to double check was that these holes are going to line up exactly the same. Okay, so what we can do is, you know, our outer piece here, we can weld a piece in like here and on here. And that way, you know, we don't have to offset anything. We can just weld in a strap here, strap in the middle, strap on the outside. All right, guys, as you can see here, we are cutting down the long piece of angle iron that I have. I'm gonna cut this into 14 individual pieces. They're gonna be approximately 3/4 inch in width, and I think that should give us plenty of support when we go to weld up these plates to the side and bottom of the welding table. Now that we've gotten all 14 pieces cut, I do need to trim the edge on all of them, and I also need to kind of strip back the paint on them as well. So we'll do that a little bit later, but for the initial setup, we're just gonna go ahead, cut down the sharp edges with the belt sander, and just make sure we don't cut ourselves. All right, guys, here's our pile of 14 different angle iron pieces. And basically how we're gonna do this, kind of like I was saying, is we're gonna put these on the end, the middle, and the end right here. And this is kind of just a mock-up. We'll probably move this one down. But yeah, just kind of a mock-up. We want to support, this is the end piece that would go above the handle here. We just want to make sure that this thing is fully supported. So it's just kind of a rough mock-up of how this is going to go. Still need to strip the paint off, and I do have a new tool for that. So let's go ahead, get that out. And I want to strip off at least the edge, so that way we get good penetration. We don't get any contamination. All right, I think we've shown this in the past, but we have these roll lock disc or nylock disc, I forget what the proper name of it is. Also the Milwaukee angle die grinder. We're just gonna go ahead, clean up these strips, and you know, get this all done. And the reason I'm gonna be using a pair of locking vice grips, That's just because I don't want to nick up my hand using this roll like this, because it will take skin off. Trust me, I've done that before. So just put it in a little pair of vice grips and we'll get ready for welding. All right, guys, we've skipped forward a little bit, but we've already got those 14 tabs welded onto one side of our side plates. So the back side, the long edge, and those other two places, we have welded all of these on. And I just welded them with the Vulcan welder over here. I have 0.030 MIG wire in it, standard MIG wiring, just your standard CO2 argon mix for the gas, and just use the settings for welding the thinner material. I think it was 12 gauge. Put that in, and yeah, we'll just use a welder and everything welded up. So that will basically allow us to put our edge pieces here. Obviously, you can see this needs to be trimmed down. They're probably, I don't know, 1/4 inch too long, and I'll get that trimmed down. And the reason we have those tabs on here is because I wanted to make sure that we have a good steady way of welding, these side plates to the bottom part here. Yes, it is more welding. Yes, it is more work, but I just didn't trust having a butt weld right here holding the entire side piece. By having these tabs going inward, having going downward, it'll give us a nice 90-degree angle. And like I said, it basically will allow us to piece the sides together to the top together as well, just by having more surface area and more weld. So I'm actually gonna make 4 more of those tabs, and what we're gonna do is basically have it sit, from end piece to end piece. That way we have a horizontal tab kind of like looking like that, and that will help us secure this even more tighter and more strong and more rigid by having each side piece welded to each other and not just depending on a butt weld on the top. So, all right, guys, I have finished up all of those angle brackets that we were talking about. So we put 1 on each side, so that's a total of 4. And basically, you guys can see how we have the side mocked up. I have not welded anything just yet on the side piece, but basically how this is gonna happen is I'm gonna weld the side pieces on first, the long piece. Then we're gonna slide the end piece on, and then we'll be able to weld it, tack it to the top, tack it to the side. Alright guys, you won't believe, but I just ran out of welding wire. I had a whole spool. I mean, it was probably 3/4 to half full, and we're out of wire. So that's 2 things we've ran out on this project: welding wire and gas. And didn't realize, cutting and welding this was going to use so much welding wire, but geez, that didn't go very far. But yeah, you guys just saw us get the side pieces on, the front piece. Obviously haven't done the shorter pieces, and can't really do that without any welding wire, so that kind of sucks. But so yeah, I kind of just tacked it on the corners, and then every spot where we had the joint, the physical bracket that we put in. So got that all tacked in place. We've got the other end, you guys can see that over there. We've got that all done too. So yeah, it sucks we're out of wire because I'm like probably 30 minutes to the nearest Harbor Freight, and I mean, I probably could try to buy stuff at Lowe's, but I'll be honest, I like Harbor Freight's products and wires. It all works really well together. All right, guys, we just got back from Harbor Freight, and I actually ended up going with the 11-pound spool. They had a parking lot sale, so this was like, I want to say it was almost $5 to $10 off. And the little spools, each one of these were $10 to $11, and they're only 2 pounds. So I was thinking about buying 2 of these. That would have been over $20. And then if I only spent like $5 more, I could get the 11 pounds. So for $30, you could get 6 pounds, or for $29.99, I think is what the price was, you get 11 pounds. So literally double the amount of wire spool for, you know, for the cost that these are. So I was like, oh, yeah, so that made sense. So we end up with the 11 pound. It's the same .030, and it's the ER 706-6. We also picked up a couple other things. We got another pair of gloves because these were half off. The titanium steel step bits, these were, I think they were half off. Picked up some cutting wheels because that was out. And then here's a, I don't know if you call this a MAME tool or not, but I saw some people over on the Harbor Freight Reddit thread saying that this can pick up a dime. So I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and pick up one of those as well. So we've got another icon tool for our 72-inch toolbox. So yeah, that's the rest of everything that we got. Alright guys, we have all 4 sides tacked on. Some a little bit tacked on more than the others, but basically I want the corners to be all nice and tight. On this last piece, you guys saw me use a big screwdriver and kind of push the metal out a little bit. This piece was warped. It probably happened when I welded all the tabs on, so it was warped a little bit inward. I just had to use that screwdriver, push it out a little bit. And yeah, so it's nice and flush now. Maybe a little bit extra too far out, but that's all right. We can weld this up, grind it down. And so yeah, that is basically getting this top fully welded up. Now what I want to do is actually take the top off and weld everything from underneath. You know, do a lot more stitch welding. Weld it, I wouldn't say every inch, but every couple inches, you know, weld it along the inside seam of this. And all those tabs that you guys saw me weld in, especially these ones in the corner, they are not welded to the other piece. So we can make it even stronger by welding the short pieces that have those tabs on them to the longer side pieces, and you know, we can make it even stronger, like I said. So I've got a lot of welding to do under this thing, but I'm not going to do that. Like I said, I'm going to take the top off because I don't want to be on my back welding, and I don't want to be crouching down up underneath this thing trying to weld on it either. So the easy solution for me would be to take the top off. I need to clean out underneath this anyway, and so that'll give us a good exercise to do that. So, all right guys, I was able to get the welding top flipped over and removed. Here's that tray that we talked about in the previous video. And yeah, so this is going to be a good, perfect welding table to just go ahead, and you guys can see all these tabs we need to weld. We need to weld to the bottom of the welding table, and then the slots that we were talking about on the side pieces. So got a good amount of welding to do. And then my intention is to also stitch weld, you know, along this inner edge here. Not a ton, probably just, you know, an inch, skip 5 inches an inch, and just do that. The other thing is we don't want to warp this thing. So all the welding we're going to do it kind of strategically. So, you know, I'll weld over here, weld over there. Just make sure you move around, and you don't want to have a warped welding table that's supposed to be flat. So just keep that in mind, and we should be good to go. So. Alright guys, you can see we have finished welding on the bottom of the table. You guys can see all of our brackets that we welded in. Those have been fully welded all the way around. Some of them kind of had a hole in it, so I kind of just plug welded it. And yeah, so I welded up all of those little L brackets that we created, even the ones here on the side that we showed you earlier. So yeah, everything's been welded up. I also welded a couple inches and just kind of, you know, stitch welded it here and there. Now guys, I will fully admit some of these welds are terrible. Some of them are actually pretty good. So it's just kind of a in between. And you know what? I don't really mind because A, it's underneath the welding table. You will literally never see it. And B, this just gave us a lot of practice time on MIG welding. You know, I do a decent amount of MIG welding, but I haven't MIG welded, you know, this much with all these stitch welding and all these brackets and all that. So it's just good practice, and as they say, practice makes perfect. So yeah, so that's pretty much gonna be it for the bottom side. Now all we got to do is flip this thing back over, put it on top of the table, and we should be able to get everything bolted back up. All right guys, here is the finished welding table. We got all 4 sides on there. It's all welded on the outside and inside. I'm not sure if you guys saw, but I did spot weld like every inch and a half on the outside. And then you guys can tell that I've kind of ground it down. I used the flapper wheel on the angle grinder, and then I used my nylock or rylock disc, I forgot what that was called, on my 90-degree die grinder. And we use that to just to smooth out the edges, because, you know, when I was using the angle grinder, it left a really sharp edge on the top and the side, so I just used that to knock this down, and it's no longer sharp, so you won't cut yourself. So yeah, I did have one more mod for the table, and that is for the welding clamps. A number of you guys in the previous video had complained that I'd ruined the table by putting a bottom under it. Well, I found these little inserts from, I believe it's 911 Motorsports. They're out of Oregon, and it basically replaces the nut that's on the bottom here. It's a threaded dowel basically, and allows you to stick the clamp down into the 5/8 hole. To put these on, all you gotta do is take the nut off like this, loosen that up, thread this on, and there you go. You have your little clamp conversion. And now with our drip tray that's underneath the welding table, we now have functional clamps, and there you go. All right guys, we got one more project to work on our Harbor Freight welding table upgrades, and you guys can see that we have these cutout panels right here. What this is basically going to be a side panel that you could stick anywhere on the side of the table, and this is going to be a mount for a table vise. I have not had a vise for a real long time. I've had this one. We've used this for a number of years, but this one will be a permanent one. We're just going to bolt it to the end of the welding table, and that will be a permanent install. So I've mocked up the mount. Obviously it's upside down. We're going to try welding this from the inside only. If we have to do some outside, I don't want it to be on any modding surfaces. So this back one, I'm going to try to do it only on the inside, but the front, you know, maybe we'll tack it in the corners here just so that we make sure everything is tight and welded and solid. And my thought was, obviously, you know, tack each end, move around, make sure everything stays tight, and then we're going to stitch weld it like we did with the rest of the top. That way this thing is fully tightened up. And also the other thing is, I did want to mention, I did pick this up on Etsy. Didn't really see a ton of available options for vise mounts. Saw a couple ones that were stupid expensive. I think this was like $115 shipped on Etsy, something like that. And this is full 1/4 inch steel. Actually might be a little bit thicker. It looks almost 3/8. And this is actually going to be wider than the steel that we have on the sides and the top of our welding table. So, you know, it is a little bit thicker than the previous pieces that we've welded up, but, you know, we got that all connected without any major issues. So, you know, I don't think we'll have too many issues with this. Just want to make sure that when we do start welding this up, we are kind of strategic with it, and we move around, because I don't think that this thick steel would warp, but, you know, we did get a little bit of warpage with the thinner stuff on the other pieces. So guys, you just saw us weld the inside and outside of this. You guys will see that we stitch welded the inside. Also, I welded all the seams that were on the inside, basically where these laser cut pieces kind of fit together. I fully welded them on the inside, and then kind of like we said, we just stitch welded in the corners, and then I fully welded all the seams. So guys, this is now one solid piece of metal, and you will see on the sides that I did basically kind of tack weld all the seams up where all of those extra spaces were, because you guys can see right here there's little holes. I did weld those up all on the sides and the front. I did not do the back because this is going to be what's bolting to the end of the table. I didn't do the back because I don't want to have to do any extra grinding. So yeah, this will basically go like this and bolt up like that. Wow, that is still really hot. So yeah, that is going to be it for welding up this vise mount. I need to go pick up a vise, and I also need to grind down these welds. It's getting pretty late here, so I will do that tomorrow because I don't want to bother the neighbors. But yeah, so we will pick this up when we're ready to mount it to the table, get a vise put on here. And before we go, I did want to show it kind of mocked up to the table. I think you guys can see I have 2 clamps on the bottom that are just holding it to it. I think this will work just fine. All right guys, we got the base plate for the vise mounted to the side of the cart. See these 4 big 18mm bolts here. We've got nuts and washers and all that. So, and then for the vise, I went and picked up this vise from Harbor Freight. It's their Doyle brand. It's a 4.5-inch vise, and it does have a little tube grabber thing in the middle of it, and you guys can see that here. I had to go buy some hardware from Lowe's to mount this thing because I didn't have anything that was long enough to fit through the base plate for the vise and our thick plate here. So I had to go buy some new hardware. All right guys, if you can see behind me, we got the vise mounted. We got everything bolted up, kind of like we said. This uses, I think it's 7/16 hardware. That's what I ended up picking up. Then I was actually reading the install instructions, and they said, yeah, you want to use 7/16 hardware. So that just happened to be a coincidence. Did not read that before I went and bought the hardware, but yeah, we've got a regular washer on top. We've got a locking washer on the bottom, and then just a regular nut. So yeah, I don't think this will go anywhere. I tightened it down pretty tight. And it's also real tight against, you know, this base to the side of the table. So yeah, that is going to be it for all of our upgrades for the welding table from Harbor Freight, US General, titanium, and just kind of our Frankenstein of a bunch of different pieces and kits and put everything together. Now guys, you could go even crazier. I just saw a guy put a welder on the side of the table and 2 gas bottles on the other side. I'll include a picture of that here. I'm not sure that's something I want to do, because specifically if I do put the, you know, the welder here and the gas tanks here, I would have to run an extension cord every time I want to use the welder. Right now, where I have the 2 welders plugged in, those 2 plugs are behind the air compressor, and you know, I don't have to run an extension cord. Everything is directly plugged in right to the wall. If I was to start doing welding over here, I'd have to move everything over here. And I like being able to just leaving the welder plugged in, and I'm able to pull it out, I don't know, 10 feet this direction, 10 feet that direction if I'm welding anything in the 3rd bay or over here. So that might be something that we do. I'm just not sure if we'll get to that, but you know, I do like what we have so far. We've got a welding top, we've got the side armor plates, and then we've got a vise and our vise mounted there. So, and to be honest, I've got some money tied up in this. The side pieces were like 220, 230 bucks. The vise mount, I think that was 130 on Etsy. And then the vise that we picked up from Harbor Freight, that was like 129. So, you know, we've got, I don't know, $400, $500 tied up into this, but you know, we'll be able to use this for years going forward, and we've got a pretty cool base of it being a US General toolbox. And finally, we got a full-size vise in the shop. I don't have to use that stupid little welder's vise that's attached to my drill press. You know, we finally have something that we can tighten, bang things on, and be pretty confident it will hold up over time. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. If you want to see more modifications, Frankenstein projects like this, welding table, tool cart, vise, mount. You know, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. And if you guys want to help support the channel, check out the links down below. I'll try to give you links for the side pieces, the Etsy mount for the vise, as well as the vise itself. I might just get you a part number from that. You know, we did pick this stuff up from a couple different places. Bash Fabrication, Etsy, Harbor Freight. I'm sure there's a fourth one in there somewhere. But yeah, so we'll provide all those things down below. Also, check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. We do have that new Corvette merch on there. We've got the ZR2 merch on there. And anything you guys pick up there goes right back into the channel. Helps kind of support some Frankenstein projects like this. Yeah, that's going to be it. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.